All right, everybody, welcome to Idea Accelerator Series Part 5. Today, we are going to talk about building your team, your case, and your base. These are really critical things for the get it done portion of your idea. Now, I know some of you listening to this call may have a personal idea versus a business idea. And so you may look at some of this and say, this is overkill for my personal idea. What I'd like you to put in your mind is that maybe you don't want to do it as big or as formal as what I am teaching, but to make personal ideas happen, this is still the same process. You may just scale it down. So your case, your base, your team, whoever you pick to support you in your idea will still follow the same things that you're seeing here, but it may just be on a smaller scale than what I'm showing you tonight. So as always, because it takes 7 repetitions to put information in your head and make it stick, we're going to do a really quick review because, like I said, we got a lot of content to do tonight. So moving forward quickly, the 2 models you should have in your head at this point in the series are the old one, your idea stagnation model. This is the one we're trying to squash, kill, and flip the other way so that you are now working under the idea growth model. And we're going to revisit these models today because these 2 models will determine whether you'll be successful having a team and whether your idea happens, and we're going to show you why. Second, there's 2 things that you as a human being run under. Your automatic is what I call the cycle of self-fulfilling prophecy. So you have a view or belief, and then that belief drives your actions, and then those actions actually reinforce your view. And so you keep repeating the same thing over and over again. That's why a lot of us get stuck in a rut, or good habits or bad habits, because self-fulfilling prophecies can be good or bad. But just be aware this is your automatic default. The other one you should have in your mind is, of course, the cycle of open possibility, which is what I want you to use and master. And the power, of course, of the cycle of open possibility is you can act and have actions that may feel contrary or uncomfortable to your views, but because they're based out of a commitment, they exist whether or not your views are there or not. And so you act in alignment with your commitments, which drive your outcomes, and then that reinforces your commitment versus acting in the face of your belief. Because sometimes we have beliefs like, I can't do it, I don't have time, not going to happen. But if you're committed to making your idea happen, then you're always going to take action even when that little voice in your head says, that. You can calmly say, thank you for the input, and continue to take action on your idea. Also, we are going to talk about this today because it's coming up for you. I know it is, and the reason I know it is by how little or how much each one of you is communicating with me between classes. So remember, know your baggage, recognize when it's coming up. I promise you, if you're not in action on your idea, if something has you stopped, it's because of your baggage. And most of you have one of the 7. I have all of the 7 to different degrees, depending on my idea and where I'm at. And so remember, I gave you 7 things that can sink your idea and 7 actions to counteract that. And so when you're not feeling worthy, taking care of yourself, following the no body practice is important. When you think you have to wait until you deserve it or earn it, it's important to commit to something that's infeasible and unreasonable. Otherwise, you're just going to deliver more of the past. When you feel like you are predicting someone's response or outcome or the success or failure of something, you know you're in the psychic view. So that's when you stop, take a pause, look at your story and say, okay, this is the story I'm telling myself. What are actual facts? And then, of course, who doesn't want to look good? We all do. It's our human nature. We worry about it to the point that we don't get in action. And so anytime you find yourself stuck, okay, know that. Stop the worrying and just pick an action. It'll help you shift out of that looking good view. And then, of course, no is bad. No is not only bad, no is great. Okay? No is going to happen all your life. It's going to happen around your ideas. It's part of the human condition. So getting the healthiest view you can adopt or practice around no is going to save you lots, especially around idea generation. And then, of course, we had that great picture of that Darth Vader dude making everyone uncomfortable. So remember, in order for you to get comfortable making other people uncomfortable, thou shalt make yourself uncomfortable at least daily. Then, some of you don't want to ever fail. Unfortunately, failure is not only an option, it is guaranteed all over your life, all the time. It's part of life. And so adopting the two practices I gave you, which is one, if you fail, okay, it's my fault, and that's a good thing, because if it's my fault, I can shift it. That's a great view to practice. And secondarily, fail, learn, skip the feel bad part. So, and if you want to feel bad about failing, give yourself 5 minutes, set a timer, and then let it go, learn, and get in action so you don't fail again. And then we talked about communicating, and we talked about building your plan. So remember, all decisions people make to work with you and support you are emotional. And you can read about that study in my book. But at the end of the day, you can put all the facts in the world together, but if you don't sell and enroll people in your big idea, at the end of the day, you may not get their support. And I said there's a reason why ideas tend to flop, is because since we don't necessarily think all decisions to do something are emotional, we follow that old-fashioned selling model where we try to sell them on the idea and overcome their objections and then get them as a customer and all that kind of stuff. Well, if decisions are emotional, people who are emotional like to get value and worth and be touched and be in relationship and feel a certain way and have working for you work a certain way. And so we talked about shifting your model to a value-based model. We also talked last week about vision and mission statements and how, yes, these are great for documents and things to get yourself focused, but very few people will join you based on your vision or mission statement, with some exceptions. I have a few organizations that have absolutely amazing ones that just are as good as a branding or a logo, but at the end of the day, that's not what people are going to follow, which is why I told you that no matter what your vision and mission says, you must master the OM, and that's the 1-minute mission message. It's how you can explain your idea, your goal, whatever it is you're working on to someone, and you're able to do it powerfully in less than a minute. So I gave you a script, and I asked you to practice, okay? And it was a very simple script. It was actually a connect, share your idea simply, give the reason why action is needed, make the request, complete the conversation, acknowledge, and thank. Sounds pretty easy, right? If I was a betting woman, and having trained this method to now probably somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 people over the last few years, I am betting most of you didn't make it much past this step. You thought about it, but you probably didn't even do your mission message, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. The last thing I want to review with you is about self-sabotaging. The biggest way we will self-sabotage ourselves when getting our idea out there is by using words that let us off the hook, like try to, hope to, wish to, probably, maybe, think, wishy-washy. Why these are sabotaging is, do you want to work with someone who's going to try to get things done or someone who gets things done? So the same thing that is you're trying to let yourself off the hook, people pick that up instantaneously, and they will know you're doing that, and it will cause them to not have as much faith or want to be as enrolled because they see your doubt. It'll show right through. We talked about building your plan. So it's great to have ideas, and at the end of the day, those ideas who happen are those who are able to master planning. And so I gave you a template, and you're going to actually get a Word version of this template after this class this week to actually take once you have your big idea to break it down. Now, I don't actually work day-to-day off this plan that I'm providing you. I use it to get myself focused, and then what I do is I put it into existence in my daily calendar. And so whatever you use, I can promise you, if you put into existence, you set aside time. If you look at my calendar, 24 hours a day of my calendar is booked. And what you don't even see on there is I even book bedtime and sleep, because if you all remember, I said 8 hours of sleep a day is essential for idea leadership and health and all those other good things. So 24/7, I've got my life and what I want to happen on my ideas planned out. So I gave you some homework, and I invited you to call and practice with me this week. I will tell you, out of, I don't know, actually, I hope that's Deanna, how many people we have in the course, but I didn't get any phone calls. You had me very, very lonely. Now, was I surprised? No. And the reason why is every time I work with a person, a group of people, even a giant global corporation who has more than enough resources to put towards crafting a 60-second message, they don't. So why? Well, you avoid the as long as you can, even to the point of killing your idea. So remember I told you that little thing about baggage? Every day you put off crafting an you are giving in to the excess baggage you are carrying on your heart, your head, wherever you want to put it. But there is something in your head preventing you from verbalizing that idea. And so what I would like to invite you all to do this week, I'm going to give you the same chance this week as last week, is to call me. It's a 5-minute call you can set up with Deanna. Practice your own. I promise you I will not bite. And I promise you it will also help you remove some baggage, because there is baggage there. There always is. I have been doing this for 24 years, hard to believe, and I still resist doing my own. I just know how to keep myself going, and I do, and I want to give you that same power. So call me, take advantage of my offer, practice your own. We are going to talk tonight about a very fun part, which is building your team. And it's funny, my good friend Colin Ford is actually on the line, and one of the things Colin told me, and I quote him all the time now, is that, is your team a dream or is it a nightmare? And Colin, you got to send me that video clip because I want to be able to play it on these courses. But, you know, John Maxwell put the same thought in a quote in one of his books where he said, teamwork is the dream work, but a vision becomes a nightmare when a leader has a big dream and a bad team. So when you're trying to come up with a team, what are we going to do with that? So today I'd like to share with you why most ideas fail. And I can tell you this because I was the role model of failing and unfulfilled ideas. And it was because I am an independent maverick. In fact, I labored for well over a decade under the illusion or delusion, depending on how you look at it, that if I wanted it done right, I did it myself. At the end of the day, I'm the one who gets things done, and all this other story that goes along with I'm going to get it done come hell or high water because I can't wait on other people, or they're not performing as they should, or things like that. So the truth of the matter is, those of us who follow this philosophy, and like I said, role model of it for a very long time, we get eaten. So the cartoon is true. If you try to do everything by yourself, at the end of the day, you will be swallowed by the enormity of what you're facing alone. So what do I want you all to consider? So what I'd like you to consider is that the best ideas for making your idea happen probably won't come out of your own head. So if you want to get there better, faster, cheaper, more fun, less stress, and all this other stuff, teams can help with that. Now remember, I did say that teams can be a nightmare, but if it's done right, teams can be your dream. So the difference when you try to make an idea happen by yourself versus in a team is basically this. In the idea growth model, team is essential, and it's because you get an exchange of money, idea, resources, energy, support, inspiration, creativity, all these things that keep you going and help you build your base. In the idea stagnation model, if you even look back at the model, you'll notice that it starts in our head and it ends in our head. And if the idea does go anywhere, who's carrying the whole idea? You are. So let's talk about building your team. So for me, I have an 8-step process I use. Number 1, I decide what I need. Then I make a list of that dream team. I work my network. I remember that bigger's not better. We're going to talk about that. I also have this honesty conversation because money does matter. I don't forget about legalities, politics, and other sundry items. They exist. They are part of the human condition. We don't want to leave those aside. Taking my time, we're going to talk about this. This is a big one. And then, of course, at the end of the day, enrolling them in the possibility. So, where I start when I say who should be on your team, there's 2 questions I ask myself. I ask myself, what do I need? And what do I lack? And I used to rush into having people help me. I even used to rush into hiring people in my company because I had so much work. I had to get it done today. The reality is you should spend as much time selecting your team for your idea as you would in hiring an employee or contractor, because they are either a catalyst or they will become your anchor. So what are you looking for in your dream team? I love Winston Churchill's quote where he says, "I'm not a pessimist, I am not an optimist, I am an opportunist." That is who you're looking on your team also for. So they're not intimidated by straight talk. They can communicate directly. They are focused on your outcomes and keep you holding to that big goal. You know, if you're having them come in to help you on a certain thing, make sure that you really believe that they're good and the best thing that you want to do. You know, I used to put a lot of weight in what people told me on how to make my ideas happen. The reality was a lot of the people advising me had no confidence in what they were advising me on. So you want to make sure the people you put on your team and ask for advice for are confident. I can't tell you, when I started my Realty Energy Ventures, which is an investment company, we do commercial and residential real estate, how many people told me how to do that, yet none of them actually owned properties or had ever ventured into that. Opinions are like airports. Everyone's going to give them. Find a team that's competent to give them to you. Your team should also be ready to tackle complex problems. You know, I like optimists and realists, but as I said, opportunists are the ideal ones, because then that allows you, even pessimists who are opportunists are good on your team. I actually do look for people with a good sense of humor. I like a good laugh. My dear and darling husband of 20 plus years, the one thing I always appreciate about him is when things get really, really heavy, the man can make me smile. And so having people on your team that keep you from getting too serious and remembering your passion and your fun in your idea helps. Also, open-minded people who don't jump to conclusions, and you can make your own list. And so I will tell you, if you've never personality typed yourself or you're not sure where you fall on the personality scale, there's lots of different ways to do it. There's lots of different ways online. You can even search for it. But what I encourage you to do is make sure you have your counterbalances on your team. In my very first business, and the only time I ever lost a huge sum of money in a business was when I actually went forward with a business venture, but I was missing what I call an analyst. They're the person who really looks at the data and says, are you doing what you should be doing? Because I'm actually kind of a get-it-done visionary, and I don't always like to look at the data. I like to run forward. And so I can promise you now I never do anything without making sure I have my good, solid analysts at my back. And I can happily say, haven't lost money since then. Now, one of the things that's really fun to do around your idea is to come up with your dream team. Baggage alert, okay? Some of us really believe that who we want on our dream team won't be there. The good news is if you just let yourself figure out your dream team, you will be amazed at who will be on it. I can tell you when I started moving into a lot bigger stages and wanting to grow my company and expand my client base and work more with the C-suites of corporations, I was amazed at who, when I asked for advice, support, conversations, all that kind of stuff, how generous people are. So don't hold back, because this is a baggage ahead warning. You will minimize who should be on your team. Don't. The worst they're going to tell you is no. But they won't tell you no if you enroll them. Working your network. So I have been able to put so many more ideas in play. And the fact of it is we're in an incredibly globally connected environment. I don't know about you, but if you haven't checked out who's on your Facebook, your LinkedIn, your Google+, sitting in clubs, at your parties with your friends, people in your family, the professional organizations you're sitting at, your coworkers, your church, I have not had any problems finding the right people just by opening my eyes to my existing network. And how do you open and get that network engaged? You can literally share your idea, and it's amazing who comes out of the woodwork to give you advice or opinions or a connection to someone who you want to be connected with. So be a networker and work your network and take advantage of every technological solution we now have to make it easier. I can build a team in 30 to 60 minutes on an idea where it used to take me weeks to find the right people and get in contact with them. Truly an amazing time we live in. Now, people always ask me, how big should my team be? And they're right. Size does matter. Why do I say that? Because I will tell you, when I'm working with my nonprofits, I'll walk in and they'll have 16 boards of directors, and 3 of them are doing the work, and the other 13 are anchoring. And when they ask me what we should do, I say, shrink the board. And they're like, oh, well, we have to do this. And it's like, you can actually work with a smaller, more efficient team and then grow bigger as you grow and gain momentum. So it is better to start smaller and not have anchors than to start big and have to manage anchors, because that can wear you out. The other reality of making a lot of ideas happen is that money, time, and resources matter. And so one of the things when it comes to building your team is looking at people who can provide those 3 things for you is important. And so be realistic on what you have to have happen. What I can say is if you're shy about having this conversation or that, especially when it comes to money, the only thing that usually happens if you're not willing to have a money conversation or really look for people who can fund, support, or donate the equivalent of what's a money service, your idea may take longer to happen. Some bigger ideas may never happen, though, because some things do need funding. So just make sure you've really looked at the money aspect and what it's going to take to make that happen, and find a team that can help you do it. Now let's talk about the other stuff. Mentioned it before, risks, liabilities, and things. So this is reality time. Everybody has great ideas, and the world is not always the kindest place, and things can happen. And so especially those of you who are out there on the entrepreneurial side of things, we tend to be a little bit more idealistic and optimistic, and we can learn the hard way. So make sure you look at your idea and say, are there any legalities I should be aware of? Things I need, licenses, permits, all that other stuff. What about money, accounting, being, especially if people are giving you money, being accountable for that? Is what I'm doing something that I should patent or trademark or service mark? Can it be stolen from me if someone gets wind of my idea? I always tell the story, and it does happen out there. It's happened to me. It's happened to others that, I had a really amazing thing. It was my intellectual property, and someone saw it who was part of a much larger corporation. At the time, I was like, I think a 2-woman outfit many, many years ago, and they were a huge global multinational corporation. When they took that work, I didn't have the resources to fight them, and they knew it. And so I lost that work, and it became theirs. They used it as a product, they sold it, and made money off it. That is a reality, and that can happen. Not all companies have integrity. Not all people have integrity. So make sure you're looking at the other stuff. Get non-competes in place. Make sure you're clear on what's confidential. When you get people on your team, make sure it's really clear up front. And then I will tell you, you can get more free, valuable, correct advice cheaper than you can pay for it from the Small Business Administration and the IRS. Both organizations have small business hotlines that will give you, like I said, things that may cost you $300 to $500 an hour for elsewhere. So remember those resources. Also on team building, take the time. Here's another baggage alert. You will be told constantly by your brain that you do not have enough time. And it's a trick. So if you ever feel rushed to pick a team member and like, I have to do it because of this, and so I'm going to shortchange something else, that's where you pause and take a time out and say, if I don't take the time, what are the consequences? I can tell you very few ideas in life are going to drop dead if you take an extra couple hours or extra couple of days or even an extra couple of weeks. Or in my case, I remember I took a whole year that I sat on something, and I was glad I did because it came out better and I did the research and I did it right. Last but not least, I taught you how to do your own. Guess who are the first people you're going to own? Yes, it is your team. So make sure when you figure out who you need, get that OM in place, give them a call, meet them for lunch, talk to them, take a walk with them. I don't care what you do, but practice that OM. Enroll them, get them excited. At the end of the day, the people who really stay committed to your ideas are the people who get the beautiful passion, breadth, and inspiration you have behind it. Okay, that was building your team. So now let's talk about something called a case. So you're going to have in your idea an iterative process, and you're going to have an OM, right? And people are going to go, oh, I loved that. Give me more. So what's your more? It's your case. Cases can look a bazillion different ways. So let me tell you, at the end of the day, a case is a call to action. When you hand that document, email, blog, post, whatever it is, whether you're putting it up to a broad community or handing it to one person, it is your call to action. So I'm going to give you just a definition for working purposes so we can talk about that today. But a case is a document whose end result is to inspire the reviewer or reader into a specific action around your vision and idea. There is a clear, and I'm going to repeat, clear call to action so the other person can successfully support you. And the reason why I keep saying request, 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 what's the point of giving a case for action if there's no action taken? So where can you use cases for action? As I said, you may put them all over the place. You can put them in emails, blogs, they can be in your own, formal proposals, presentations you do to people, status and annual reports, through your social media. You can use QR codes to get people to take action, iPhone, smartphone apps, websites, you name it. Now, why did I stress the request thing? Here's the thing. In this cartoon, I have an artist that did the cartoons for my book. I actually had a phone call with an organization that was trying to get a product out there and get people to support it and do a specific action. And I said, well, what did you do? And they said, oh, we did this huge Facebook thing, and we got really positive response, and we went up to 2,000, like some astronomical 2, 3, 4, I don't even remember. It was a huge number of Facebook likes on their page. They had zero increase in sales. And when they said, well, you just look and see what's going on, I looked, and that's me at the end of the table going, you never actually asked them to do anything. So, except like your page. And there was the flaw in the whole thing. So their case for action wasn't a case for action. So the other reason why case for actions, and there's two of them, can fail are A, clarity. So it's very muddy. And just so you know, we tend to get very muddy in our requests when we're not clear ourselves and or we're not confident. And we're going to talk about a practice to improve clarity on your case for action. The second thing is that we do wrong is we use a lot of jargon. So one of my mentors from many, many, many years ago, when I was learning fundraising, he told me in a course, he said, look at this, write something, and then as soon as you write it, cross off every adjective and adverb you use, and then see if there's actually any substance. Brilliant practice, works great. Keeps you from cheating, makes sure that you're actually putting in high quality content and not putting a lot of flowery adjectives and adverbs around nothing of substance. So when you design your case, I want you to begin with the end in mind. What are the outcomes? I want you to grab them at hello. So you have to start with something that's catchy. And how do you grab them at hello? Tell a really good story. You know, it's funny, I've been starting to do a bunch of press and PR for my book. And the story that everyone wants to talk about is losing 100 pounds. And even though it's like this whole corporate thing and all these big ideas and I can talk about all this other stuff, everyone loves that story of how I got inspired to lose that weight. You also, in the case for action, need to make the case. So what is the data showing? What are the things and why they should be involved? Why are you the person, the one, the unique thing that they should be looking at? And then also creating urgency. This is another weakness. A lot of times when I look at people's stuff, they don't put time sensitivity on it or urgency. And so what happens is people let it languish or they ignore it because there's no urgency to it. Sometimes there's no path. So they read through and again, they're like, I don't know where to go. And that path should end up with something that is to ask you or do something. So make sure you ask. And if you can, in all ways, anyway, incentivize them to respond to your ask. So I gave you some quick steps. So when you go back and review this video, you have your steps for building your case that I just went through in a nice, neat list that you can grab and use. All right, let's talk about litmus testing. So one of the things I often get asked to do is review people's cases. And they say, well, how do you know whether it's a good case or not? Well, I have what I call the litmus test. My first litmus test is it clear? So I literally read it start to finish, and I put it in, I highlight in a certain color every time I'm confused, okay? Because that means if I'm confused, someone else will be. The second thing is I highlight all jargon. So anytime you throw in some flowery stuff or jargony words or things like that, again, I highlight it because that will turn people off. Then I'll read it again and notice what I'm skipping. And I'll put big boxes around the sections I skip because quite frankly, if I'm skipping them, other people will too. So you consider leaving those out. You may not need them at all. The boring factor. The minute I get bored, I highlight those sections and put a B on them. Because if you're bored, somebody else is going to be bored too. And again, you're going to lose them. Then I look and say, are they telling me what I'm going to have or get from this? Or are they going blah, 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 how they're doing it? And this is the hardest thing. I'm a left-brain person, and so I love to talk about how I'm going to do it, the means. I had to teach myself to consciously talk about the ends or the haves. So that's another one of my litmus tests. And then, of course, as I've said before, is there a clear request that I can take action on? And if there is, it's nice and in green. And if it's missing, there's a little bit of red on that case for action. And then the last but not least, it's an emotional gut check for me. So you can motivate people negatively. You can motivate people positively. There is a balance and you have to watch for it. So I know people who very successfully use negative motivation, but there is a risk that if you put them too deep in resignation, they actually won't take your action because you've left them in the dump. Same thing with being overly positive and Pollyanna. People may be like, ooh, this seems unrealistic. And so I do read for like a balance of, okay, is it too negative or too positive, and am I having an emotional reaction either way? So there is your litmus test. You can start by testing your own. You can hand it to others and tell them what to look for. but this works brilliantly and will ensure that 100% of the time you put out a quality case for action. All right, last but not least of our topics tonight is building your base. I love Tim Gunn's quote when he said, "Life is not a solo act. It is a huge collaboration, and we all need to assemble around us the people who care about us and support us." I am going to put forward that besides your team, your base will become a source of amazing joy for you if you appeal to them, handle them, and love on them. And I'm going to teach you how to do that in a way that helps you keep your idea moving. So, I love to do things by myself. I mentioned that before. But here's the reality of your idea. It may be your idea, but guess what? It's not about you. So, what does that mean? There's a trap in it being me, my idea. And there's a great book called Pendulum that you all should give a read if you're going to be in the idea making business. And it's because it talks about the me-we cycles that we run through as a society. And this is the year 2015, and we are in what's called a we cycle. And so what happens to people when you really focus on your idea and you doing this and you doing that is people kind of feel like you're a little bit narcissistic around your idea. And they don't see a we or an opportunity for them in your idea. It's like, oh, great, thank you for sharing, and good luck with that, because you're so focused on what you're doing. So in an idea, you want an auditorium full of people, but what ends up happening in the me trap is this. And there's you by yourself holding up the flag of your idea. So how do we avoid it? How do we avoid making people leave our ideas or not support our ideas? How we avoid this is what I call becoming other-centric. So what do I mean when I say becoming other-centric? So your idea may exist in different realms. Like in charities, I ask my charities, are you donor-centric? If I'm working with a startup business or a big corporation or things like that, one of their groups is investors. I'm like, are you investor-centric? When I work with churches and community organizations and people who want to make things happen in a society way, cities, organizations, governments, I do a lot of work with those agencies. I'm like, are you community-centric? And when I work with teams, and I've gotten to work with one of the most famous sports teams, it's, are you team-centric? Are you really building that? And team-centric goes beyond sports teams, to be frank. I mean, team-centric is actually an aspect that every organization has to master to make ideas happen effectively. So it's all about me, albeit, if we're trying to get a raise or make ourselves look really good is great, but it's not so great in making things happen. Certain things happen in society. It took more than one person leading the way and working together to have things come down, be created, and moved forward. So what I'm going to give you is just some ideas on how to take your idea and make it other-centric. So you've got this great idea. How do you pull others into it? What's the secret sauce that's going to make you do that? The first one, and it's funny, I grew up Catholic, and so I was doing the charity model in my business before there was even a term for it. But how I was raised was that you always tithe 10% of your income to charity. And it didn't matter whether you were making $10 or $10 million. That was just an expectation of you've been blessed, and there was always something or someone less fortunate than you. And so now in today's society, you will see charity models all over the place, from people with the logos of famous charities on their products and stores that they donate a percentage back, to organizations like mine that run in something called a B Corp, where we donate so many of our own personal hours to charities as well as money and resources and things. But anything you can do with your idea to make it a charity model is great. You know, for my book, I have one of my goals is that I will raise the most money through charity via a book. And so I have a charity model that I work with charities so that I donate all my author's proceeds to that charity. And so I can get an opportunity to speak about my work and make a difference. And then when the book sells, I have it set up that that charity gets a big donation check from the sale of the book. And for me, it allows me to build my base, and it allows me also to give back to charities that I love and wouldn't be able to support in such a big way, but I'm using the leverage of my base to help them be successful. It's great, you feel great, and other people feel great about you doing that too. Another concept that's out there is called co-opetition. And what it is actually taking your competition and creating cooperative agreements with them. So this has worked brilliantly all over the place. I can actually tell you that I work, subcontract, partner with, joint venture, all these other things with people that 15 years ago I would have treated as my competition and said, I can't work with them. But the principle of co-opetition is great because what you're working from is actually a view of abundance, and you're working from the view of creating a win-win relationship, whether it's growing your base, growing your finances, growing your breadth, growing each other's businesses. Co-opetition works brilliantly. So look at your idea and say, who else is out there doing something similar, and how could we actually cooperate with each other and instead of competing with each other for the same marketplace? And two of the most popular co-opetition things today, one's called affiliate partnerships, where you get people to sell your stuff or your idea for a percentage of whoever buys it. And the second's called a joint venture partnership. And joint venture partnerships are usually where you can either jointly develop products or jointly sell products, and you actually both get the benefit of that for your marketplaces, and you agree not to play in each other's playground, not in a monopolistic fashion, but in a way that allows you both to have maximum breadth. Now, another way to build your base is to make sure you become what I call customer-centric. So when you become customer-centric, you are really thinking about all of your customers, and I'm going to show you all your customers in a minute. But it's not just your team, it's not just the people that are going to participate in your idea, it's a whole bigger place. And so we are going to talk about that in just a minute. But another tool to actually become other-centric is to make your big idea small and bite-sized so people can get it. So when I say make the big small, I'll just give you an example. I had an organization that had this brilliant curriculum that they wanted to get out and say they were going to sell it to all of the independent school districts around the U.S. on leadership and teaching children leadership in a public school atmosphere. The idea didn't go anywhere because most people know AISDs are incredibly bureaucratic and political. And so I talked to them about it. I said, look, why don't you propose and just get one school district on board and then show a business model where you take that school district and leverage it. That helped them build their base. People could get around that because it took their big idea and it made it in a way that their base could get it, support it, and help them grow it. Now, let's talk about the customer themselves. So I remember certain things always caught my eye in advertising, right? Even in the grocery line, sitting at the checkout and all that kind of great stuff. And what I realized after taking courses in human psychology is that they were appealing to the whole customer in various ways. So I'm going to teach you the most popular ways to ensure that you can build your base. And you can build it by appealing to the multiple needs that make up the human condition. So let me introduce you to all those voices in your head and everyone else's head. How do you appeal to the whole customer, the emotional one, the one that makes decisions emotionally, which is everyone? The first me in all of us is the emotional me. This is the one where we do want you to evoke an emotion in us around your idea. So think about, what emotion is it you want to evoke that will inspire people to come and be a part of what you're doing? There's another person in our head. It's called the skeptic. Okay? The skeptic is sitting there waiting for us to prove to him why he's wrong. It doesn't matter what you give him. He's looking for you to give him some facts, some data, something that's going to make him feel like you're not pulling the wool over his eyes. That's our Mr. Skeptic. Then we have what I call the little kid in me, which is, oh my gosh, tell me something I'm a part of, something technology, a revolution, exciting. Make me feel alive. We get so bored, and that's exciting me. Give me something different. Give me something special. Make me feel the urgency to want to be a part of you. That's the exciting me, sitting in your head at all times. We also have a need in our emotional selves to feel important. And so, again, anything you can do around your idea to make people feel really a part of it is important. We also have a desire to get in action if you do stimulate all those other parts of ourselves, called the action me. So, believe it or not, at any one time, those are all floating around in everybody's head. And you can appeal to all 7 of those and really get a base engaged. There's another few psychological things that we look for in our human condition. And next time you go through the checkout of your checkout line at your store, I want you to notice the use of some of these. First one is faces and eye contact. So when you send things out to people, and one of the reasons why I always use video in my webinars is you can see me. I'm looking at you. I am making contact with you. Start looking at magazines when you walk in the checkout line, and you'll see how they always put something on there to catch your eye that's someone looking at you. The other thing is they use catchy stories or something that grabs your attention, because we love to hear stories. You can also grab attention with testimonials. This day and age, video testimonials are considered the gold standard. That's getting someone on camera who just raves about you and your idea, right? But written testimonials can work also. And it basically appeals to the skeptical me. The skeptical me feels like, oh, if other people say it's okay, then it's okay for me. Asking a question. Do you know, I have learned, most brilliant parenting tip, if I want my kids' attention, I ask them a question. I can tell them things till the cow comes home, but the minute I ask them a question, they instantly perk up. We all do. It's part of our brain. Use it. Ask a question. Engage their brilliant minds. The other thing not to be afraid of is to challenge generally accepted views. So a lot of people don't even know a pink dolphin exists. It's endangered. People are trying to rescue it. And so I put this up. It's like you can put a little controversy in there. You can challenge something. I worked with a organization that was a charter school, and kids wanted to go to school all the time there. It was so much fun. It was more fun than being home. And I was like, wow, well, just ask the question and say, Mommy, I want to go to school on Saturday. People are going to be like, what school do kids say that about? Tell me more. There is also the element of surprise. We love to be surprised, so anything you can do to create that element of surprise is going to capture your base. And then remember I told you that VIP personality, they love sneak peeks, they love special offers, and that really makes a difference to them. And then remember that action personality we have? Our action personality is pretty impatient with jargon, so don't use it. You don't have to. If you master your own and you master your case for action, you can make a 100% jargon-free guarantee. Use headlines, too. That captures the action me's attention. The action part of your brain doesn't read. It just skims the headlines. So you better make sure whatever you put out there, no matter what format you put it out there, that it is headline-worthy. So staying other-centric can be achieved in 7 steps. So I talked to you about the charity model. talked to you about competition, becoming customer-centric, making the big small, appealing to the whole customer. One last thing I want to talk to you about tonight is relationships. So in the book, I gave you a 12-week program on relationship management plan. And what is that? That 12-week program is gold. It took me 15 years to implement a 12-week program in my own business. And I'm giving you the shortcut so you can skip 15 years of wallowing around. But the reality is you can build your base as huge as you want, and if you do not have a relationship management plan, that 3,000 Twitter followers and the 5,000 Facebook likes and the 2,000 LinkedIn connections will not result in anything on your idea, because all relationships take work or they don't last, except for the blessing soulmates sometimes we have. But in most of the world, relationships require some action. So one of the things I want you to think about is fundraising. And so fundraising isn't just money. It's actually everything you do, all the activities that you do that results in you getting the resources you need to implement your idea. It could be money, time, materials, expertise. Great, and that's what a lot of people focus on. But what I will tell you is, if you don't do relationship fundraising, human capital fundraising, where your idea centers on the unique and special relationship between you and each customer supporter, your idea will not grow to where it needs to be. So your overriding consideration is to care for and develop the bond between you and your supporter, and do nothing through your idea creation process to jeopardize or damage that relationship. It's a perfect treasure. And one of the stories I love to tell, because it just goes to show you the power shift of relationship fundraising, is even though for 12 years I had no business plan, I had no CRM, I had no marketing plan, I ran a very successful business. You know, millions and millions of dollars of work, you know, lots of employees, lots of clients. You know, I've worked in over 50 different business sectors. But the one thing I always did is I managed my relationship capital and my relationship fundraising. And so there's no surprise to me that I have customers that I've had that have followed me to every job I've ever had and now exist today with me as clients of my own company. So you can get a lot of stuff done in your idea just by simply embracing relationship fundraising. And look at how many different groups of people you need to keep in your relationship management process and system. Everybody supports your idea, from the significant other who has to put up with you maybe not being there, to the clients who might buy the product, to the folks that give you expertise, to the folks that want to partner with you and make the idea happen. You have a lot of relationships to manage. And so I really do invite you to practice the 12-week plan I give you in the book, so that you, like I said, save yourself 15 years and do it in 12 weeks. So we are rounding the top of the hour. That was a lot of stuff to cover. I invite you to watch this again and read the chapters in your book. So any questions before I talk about what we're going to do next week, which next week is my second most favorite bonus course to teach you all. I'm going to just take a quick eye to the chat box, and you can let me know if you have any questions or if you're good. Give me a thumbs up or I have a question. I'm watching. I can see you're all on here, so Colin, Debbie, give me a thumbs up. All right. So thank you, everyone, for tonight. Our next and last class, although I am not going to leave you all, I'm actually going to tell you about something after that class, because I want you guys to make your ideas happen, is a bonus course. It's based on book 3. It's course I teach to my clients, but it's called Lead Yourself, Lead Others. That's book 3 that as part of this book series. But what I want to leave you with is, when you make an idea happen, you have taken on idea leadership. So next week, I want to give you some golden practices that I can promise you. I have worked with people from plant operators to people working in nonprofits, people with no college education whatsoever, up to CEOs of companies. And these practices have helped them become leaders and to make things happen. And so I'm really excited to be sharing these sneak peeks with you all. And so I hope you will enjoy that class next week, and I look forward to seeing you all. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your life energy. I'm sad that technically the class is our last one next week, but like I said, I'm going to create a format for you all to stay connected with each other and with the process. Have a great evening, everybody. Good night.